Hey, welcome back, Darren. Good to have you back on the pod.
Thanks, Edward. Good to be here.
Awesome. And for those who don't know, guys, Darren is the co-founder of IPOR Fusion. If you've even spent 5 minutes on socials and DeFi recently, you will see IPOR Fusion popping up left, right, and center. They're absolutely nailing it. So IPOR Fusion is the prime brokerage protocol of DeFi, offering fully composable automated modular vaults. And today's a special episode. Darren has agreed to come on and walk us through IPOR's vault strategies and design. So let's get stuck in, Darren. It's so great to have you back. And yeah, we value your time greatly. So maybe you can give a bit of background just to open up of yourself and IPOR Fusion before we get stuck into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Darren Camas, co-founder of IPOR Labs. We build IPOR Fusion and the IPOR interest rate derivatives. Myself, I've been a builder in crypto for a very long time, maybe one of the oldest profiles. Started building in 2011, used to run the number two exchange to MTGOX back in the day. We weren't MTGOX, but we were the number two market leader. The industry was much smaller then, and I'm very passionate about crypto, DeFi, decentralization. And that's probably what led us to build IPOR protocol. So it's really two parts. One is an interest rate derivative suite, which right now is rolling in the background, but we have an AMM v3 in the works. That's TLDR, it's the largest, interest rates are the largest derivative market in the world. And nascent in DeFi. And then Fusion, which is probably where most people know us from recently, is a fully composable modular vault stack. So we took that from a ground up approach. We took all of the experience building, the first two versions of the IPO interest rate derivative protocol, and that went into building Fusion. So Fusion is, if you're coming from TradFi, it's a prime brokerage protocol. So effectively the one place that you go to construct sophisticated strategies in DeFi. No coding experience needed. You can actually spin up a vault from the front end. You can do management through clicking around on the front end, or if you're coming from TradFi, you probably know how to code in Python, and you can manage it through an SDK. And then in DeFi, it's your fully automated modular stack, and maybe we'll touch on a couple of points in this discussion. Different design decisions that we took on the engineering side, and what the benefits of those are.
That's great. So guys, there you go. That is IPOR Fusion in a nutshell. I want to go through vault design, your philosophy, what are the non-negotiables, the core architecture, Fusion versus Merkle. I've got a bit of a list, but maybe you want to kick off, Darren. Just let's go from the ground up. Perhaps you can even dictate this if you'd like. We've come in open book here, and we just want to hear what Darren can share with us, basically.
Okay, so when we were designing Fusion, we actually had a need internally. Part of the interest rate derivative protocol had this asset management component, and we built that for capital efficiency. Right. So the whole idea is, while you have your money working somewhere, in our case, underwriting interest rate swaps, it's also going out to yield somewhere. And this is the basics of capital efficiency that's, sometimes been missing in DeFi, but it's becoming much more of a thing with the vault narrative. Right. So the question is, how is that designed? And from the start, we always had a question from people, where's my money in the machine? Like, if you are underwriting interest rate derivatives, where's the rest of the yield coming from? And in our case, it was coming from the money markets. So we started actually building these screens on the front end, tracking the money. Like, where's my money? You deposit it here, it's deployed here, it's earning some APY that's returning there, and you can get it out. And that really just embraces the core principles of DeFi, which is everything is composable, everything is transparent. You can actually read information from on-chain. DeFi is open. You can contextualize your position. You can understand where your money is. And that really goes into, if you think about my builder profile, this OG mentality, which is don't trust, verify. So I have typically a lack of trust when I'm looking at a protocol, because I'm skeptical, and if I put my money somewhere, I don't want to lose it. Where on the other side of the spectrum, you can get this kind of greed factor, and that tends to blow up typically. If we look in the centralized world, we can look at like last cycle, we had things like Celsius or like FTX, where you assume that you have the brightest people in the world and you give your money blindly to them. Or in the what we would call, I would say, is pseudo DeFi world, we had stream finance last November, right? So is the trust is where everything can eventually blow up, and this is where strategies go to die. So the whole idea and the fundamental question of where's my money is actually fairly straightforward in DeFi, but I don't see a lot of other vault builders actually embracing this, right? Like, you should be able to trace the provenance of funds, where it's earning, what that yield is. But actually, most of the vault providers that you see, they have very limited tracking on the front end. You have a lot of NAV calculation, which is basically, what are the net assets and their value of the vault, and updating the share price all manually and coming from off chain. And this is a high trust barrier, and this is something that we reject as builders. So when we were developing IPOR Fusion, actually we did it for our own purposes first. We wanted to know where the money is, what is it earning, what are the trust implications, and we wanted to remove as many trust implications as possible. So we consider it kind of a trust minimized infrastructure. And if I unpack that a little bit, the whole idea is that you can put your assets in a vault. You can always see where they are on chain, what the vault is able to do. And then, of course, if something is not integrated, it's not able to do that. For example, like, what markets is it linked to? Like, let's imagine a simple vault that's going to Aave and it's going to Morpho. Okay, so we know what markets it's linked to, and that's transparent. But is it a lend-only vault, or is it able to take debt? That changes the risk profile. What assets is it holding inside? What assets can it hold inside? So these basic fundamental questions, they can be answered at the smart contract level. Um, and when we designed the stack, actually, we wanted the vault to be able to show this transparently. We wanted builders to be able to build these strategies kind of modularly, like plug and play. Like, you can change your strategy over the life cycle of a market. And then finally, the NAV calculation is actually done by the vault itself. Maybe I'll pause here so we can jump into more details.
Thank you. That's great. For a year now, I've been working full-time in DeFi. So I've had the privilege of actually being exposed to a lot of platforms and tools like IPOR Fusion. I'm actually in a couple of IPOR Fusion vaults. So what you've said really relates to me. I can see the transparency on your platform as well as a few other platforms. And this is what brings me trust. I love DeFi for the reasons you've mentioned just now, but also I think going forward, it's very important to be able to have the skills to manage your own capital yourself online. It's a very different world coming up. Who knows what's around the corner in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But I think being able to click that mouse and move your funds around and make your own adult decisions with your own capital on chain is a game changer.
Yeah. If we look at that, then Fusion serves a couple of purposes, right? So, for example, if you want to use it for your own management, you can. It's really for kind of DeFi power users. If you're more of a passive participant that's looking for risk-adjusted returns, you can get into a strategy that's fully automated by someone else. Or if you think that you're at a level where you have the sophistication, the thing about vaults is that it changes the fund game dynamic. It's an open infrastructure, permissionless, where you can deploy a strategy from day one. You can set fees at the smart contract level, and you can open it up. And this is really kind of embracing the permissionless nature of DeFi. But the whole idea here is like, if you're a user, you want to know what's happening, and you just mentioned that in kind of the 2017 craze, numbers go up, numbers go down, but then when you get to some point, you're looking at where does my own investment philosophy fit on a risk adjusted return, or this kind of efficient frontier risk curve? The higher the number is, the less sustainable it is. The lower the number it is, the lower APY is, it's typically more sustainable. But there's always somewhere on this so-called risk curve that you can find a strategy that matches your desires. And we see a lot of people that went into stream finance because it was high on the APY chart, which also means that you're probably higher on the risk curve. So that's just very simplified, big number, be skeptical. So if we go back to stream, I was pushing a lot of this KYC, know your currency, know your curator. And so if we look at like Tau Labs and Infinify, the points max vault, right? For example, in the points max, you already understand you're kind of doing points max farming. But Infinify is a protocol that has really risen very nicely because I can't remember their full model, but it's like higher yields, no leverage, right? They create sort of a tranching and a duration dynamic where they adjust risk, and you can basically choose your point on the risk curve and your duration risk and get a higher yield than just straight lending. But then what is your baseline asset? Know your currency, know your curator, right? So you're already doing your basic analysis. You say, okay, so if I like Infinify as an asset, and let's say USD, then I feel safe in this asset. Maybe it has a different profile than Stream, hopefully, and I personally believe this, because it's transparent, it's on chain, and then you look at the other side and you say, okay, who's my curator? Tau Labs, they have a number of vaults on Fusion. They were very strong in the points farming game for Reservoir. Now for Infinify, they have a couple of very exciting vaults coming up, and I think the one that you mentioned is the newly launched one on Silo. So I think the main one is built on Morpho. This one is done on Silo, and actually, there's a possibility of building a vault that goes cross-market. And this is one of the other kind of beauties and flexibilities of Fusion. So who has access, who can do what are the underlying instruments, and you can also go on the strategy and see basically where's the money, what's the effective leverage, is the position at risk, is there active management, and then you don't have to have any of these questions because everything's accessible for the. So in crypto in general, and especially in DeFi, we say, okay, DYOR, do your own research. But like Fusion makes it very simple for you to do it. You can open up, you can see the contextualization of all positions. We launched a collaboration with Cerberus, which is a risk rating protocol. They rate assets, and they also now started rating vaults. And all of the Fusion vaults will be risk rated by Cerberus. So you can see the triple letter rating. It will be available soon in all of the front ends of the vaults that they rate. So again, making accessible all of the data for someone to do their own research and to evaluate their own risk.
Fantastic. So should we go into a bit more of the architecture? What's the key architectural idea behind Fusion? Let's say that. Separating curators, setting boundaries versus strategy execution inside those boundaries. And what does that lead to, or why does that lead to safer and more scalable vaults?
Yeah, so if we do like a very short history of vaults, vault is one smart contract vessel that receives assets. It does actions on behalf of the pooled assets, and it also socializes the gas fees and moves them around globally, and you have a share price. So a lot of people think a vault is a vault, and that is absolutely untrue. Vault infrastructure and vault architecture, it varies differently, and it also you have to understand what the trust implications are, and also the flexibility, and also the gating. So there's a lot of vault protocols that are really just wrappers for a multisig. And if it's a wrapper for a multisig, okay, that's fine. But that's a huge trust barrier. That means that the funds are up to the sole discretion of who's ever or the group of people that are running that strategy. For me personally, this is something that I reject because I don't want to, be open just to the non-transparent whims of a third party. So let's look at others. So others are, like 4626 Vault is kind of the Vault standard, and there's a lot of things built around this, but not all Vault infrastructure is the same. So one of the main prevailing technologies is Merkle proof vault. So Merkle proof vault, it basically gates what you can do and can't do via proof system. So this Merkle proof is a set of actions that are pre-approved that are put into a Merkle proof, and that shows you what you can and cannot do. That's programmatically verifiable. But there's a couple of issues to this. One, every action that a vault can do must be pre-approved, but that is effectively IP, and that's pretty static IP or pretty restrictive IP that's either fully opaque or fully exposed. So what I mean by that is if you don't know, the construction of the Merkle proof, you can never know what's possible at the vault. So you can't go onto a Merkle proof vault and understand what the gating is, what the strategy limitations are, unless you have access to that. But if you have access to that, then the entire IP is exposed because you know every single route that this strategy can take.
So it's kind of a black box either way. It's opaque if you can't see it, or
Yeah,
exposed if you can.
yes.
So how does Fusion solve that transparency trade-off?
So it's not just a transparency trade-off, it's an operational trade-off.
Okay.
So again, if you have this predefined set of things that you can do, what happens in a risk management situation? What happens if you have to exit a position? What happens if you have to leverage loop through another market because one is fully tapped out? What happens if you have to exit, through another liquidity pool that was not pre-approved? That has governance risk and lag and execution. And then, for example, let's say that I need to entirely re-architect my strategy to exit a position. That means I have to, again, go map out all of the routes, reconstruct the proof, and then I can operate. But if there's something that I need to do inside of that that wasn't pre-thought, then I'm stuck. I can't execute that. So think of it kind of as a straitjacket, right? You know what you can, what you can't do, but you can't go outside of these bounds, and they're quite strict. Or if you want to kind of pre-approve everything within a certain bandwidth, you have what is called a loose leaf set, which means that you kind of approve everything, which means it's a very heavy proof. There is some, time delay, but it's like you're really not restricting anything. So Merkle proof may be very good for very, very simple strategies where you want to say, I want to lend on Aave, I want to lend on Morpho, right? That's some place where it works very well. Let's say for maybe a DAO treasury management, but in sophisticated strategies, it can be very much of a barrier. So when we think about Fusion, Fusion is quite a different thing. So you think of like fuses are smart contract connectors. They're atomic actions. So one, they allow the vault to interact with external protocols. And these atomic actions, let's take the credit market. It might be lend and redeem. It might be take debt. It might be a flash loan. But for example, these atomic actions can be constructed into other things. So for example, if I have a lending vault, I can add lending fuse for market A, market B, market C. At this substrate, which is effectively like the database level, I can whitelist certain markets that have, like, let's say on Morpho, you have specific collaterals. Let's say I want to construct a set of like blue chip collaterals like Bitcoin, wrapped ETH, wrapped staked ETH, for example. Or let's say I want to go higher on the spectrum, up the risk spectrum, and I can whitelist a set of PT collaterals, right? You can atomically choose what your counterparty assets are. But that also means that the allocator can see the recipe, they can see the ingredient list, right? So that means that Nothing is hidden at the ingredient list level. So that allows for radical transparency, but smart contract gating at the blockchain level. So you understand what can and cannot be done by this vault, which assets can and cannot be interacted with this vault. So if you don't have a market whitelisted, if you don't have an asset whitelisted, the vault can't interact with that. So you understand what are the bounds at the smart contract level. So that's your ingredient list. But if you are building a strategy, actually you can automate within these bounds and you can do any transaction within these bounds, and you can keep that intellectual property kind of on your own backend and run it through the Python SDK. So that means that you have curators that are running fully automated strategies. They have bespoke logic that they can shift within these bounds. So that means that, they can change the leverage up, they can change the leverage down, they can exit through different routes, for example, in a risk management scenario. And that gives you a lot of flexibility on the operations side, but it gives you security within the bounds of the smart contract side. So it changes both, the flexibility of the strategy and the operational complexity.
So the curator defines the bounds, but the strategy logic inside stays proprietary. And that's how you get both transparency and flexibility.
Yes. So when we talk to vault builders, there's a lot of things that you want to look for as a vault builder, and also like what's kind of our strategy as an infrastructure provider, as kind of this prime brokerage protocol or this automated modular composable vaults. So we have a lot of people that come and they're very good at strategy, both the DeFi native, and now we're starting to attract TradFi and institutional builders and capital. And you want to say, okay, so what's the level of technical capabilities that you need? How can I take some of this in-house, or how flexible am I on that? Do I need to have my own smart contract developers? Do I need to sit in someone's integration queue? So, for example, for a lot of these things, like if you're going on the Merkle proof side, you need to have the specialty for Merkle proofs in-house, or you need to sit in an execution queue from the vault builder side, right? This becomes a bottleneck. This becomes very difficult to launch multiple vaults, but it's nice, let's say, maybe a revenue stream for the vault protocol themselves. Me, I take the opposite approach. We very much embrace the open source ethos. And why we call Fusion the prime brokerage is that we're not really trying to, when we're talking about building Fusion, I don't want people to come and talk with me or talk with the IPOR Labs team or talk with someone in the DAO to build on Fusion. I want to build all of the tool sets so that they can build it themselves. And this is how Fusion gets horizontal scaling. So it's a feature-rich set of getting on chain and getting up and executing and managing quickly. So, for example, if I build a fuse, let's say we have fuses now that are being built for Aave v4. Once Aave v4 does their public launch, any person that's managing on Fusion can integrate the Aave v4 fuse set through one button click on the front end. That means that they have this scalable modular approach. They can get fast to market, and they can do basically, complex execution from day one. The more fuses that are in Fusion, the more kind of economy of scale we have. The more builders, the more fuses, the more utility. So it's not just your superpower for gating strategies, it's also your speed to market, it's your security. We have a different type of fuses that are coming out, which allow the actually position to change its own allocation within a block. These are called transient fuses. This is a new level of DeFi asset management. And then the question is like, how do you scale? So I don't want to talk with most of the people building on Fusion because we want to, again, build this tool set. So there's an SDK that's in Python. So most of the strategists, if you're in strategy, whether you're in DeFi native or TradFi native, you probably code in Python. This means that you can use the Python SDK to fully automate strategies. So if we go back to the Tau Labs Infinify Points Max Vault that you mentioned, Tau is a firm that has their own ability to build the alpha, which is this execution role. And that means that Fusion horizontally scales with Tau. They're launching vault after vault after vault because they are completely unblocked to build and launch strategies. And so this is exactly the strategy we took in building this kind of prime brokerage protocol. But this also means that we can very much attract institutional allocators and strategists, because again, these guys that are coming from, the traditional asset management space, they know strategy, they know risk, they can code in Python, they know statistics, but they've never touched a smart contract and they probably never should. So they can literally go to the front end and click around and set up a strategy and execute it through a Python SDK. So this is your bridge between TradFi and DeFi asset management. This is why everyone talks about vaults as a narrative, but how is it actually going to happen is a big mystery for most people, because
But this is a huge shift, because TradFi allocators usually need clear governance and
Mhm.
auditability. You're actually structuring that onboarding process for them.
Yes, and actually we will very soon have an end-to-end lending optimizer wizard, where not only can you set up the vault in, let's say, about a 10-minute going through a form, but actually you can get online with full alpha automation and execution in under an hour. So this is going from ideation to strategy very quickly, and that will be on the front end. So this prime brokerage suite. And actually, speaking of Tau, during the Stream Finance collapse in November, they were able to go from ideation. They were thinking about a distressed quality asset lending optimizer, to spinning it up on the front end with full automation within about 3 hours on a Friday afternoon. So
Wow.
that kind of speed and execution, most of the large vault builders that are using legacy tech, uh, it takes them 1 to 2 months to spin up a vault and a strategy per client. In Fusion, you can do it seamlessly in 5 minutes. You can wire it up. Actually, I did a walkthrough with someone, and actually recently tweeted about this. It was actually yesterday, where they come from traditional finance. They wanted to build a ETF. We discussed TradFi to blockchain terminology, which is, an ETF is an ETF. It has one base asset. It holds a basket of exposure, and it has a NAV calculation. We were able to spin it up on the front end and do that in about 30 minutes, actually, with all of the kind of asset roots. And then for the last 15 minutes, we talked, and he complained about, how in TradFi this would take 6 months. So in an hour call, we were able to go through not only a proof of concept, but fully deployed on chain versus the traditional world. So this is why vaults are a narrative, but this is also why Fusion is the stack to be able to capture this.
That's fantastic. And how did that ETF style vault perform once it went live?
It's still in concept, so we haven't
Okay.
launched it yet. But I mean, this is the
POC, as
ability.
you said, yeah.
The whole idea of test in production. You can actually deploy in production a fully fledged vault in a couple minutes.
That's absurd. Darren, you guys are really pushing the boundaries of DeFi here. So let's walk through a strategy then, if you can. It would be great to understand the end-to-end process. Perhaps you can kick off.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so this is the Fusion web app, right? You can go to ipor.io/fusion, and you can get to all of these vaults, right? We have a points program. You can browse the kind of the different strategies, but I wanted to walk you through maybe a user view of what a vault looks like. And I think that will probably take one of our most popular vaults right now, which is a staked ETH leverage looping vault. I mean, this has been a staple of DeFi, but it looks very different inside of Fusion. And, I want to show you guys why. And then maybe after that, we can look at how you can see the transparency from a user's view, and then what it looks like from the builder's perspective. So here you can see, you can sort by different strategies, you can sort by different assets, you can find the APY, but let's sit on this IPOR SDETH Ethereum leverage looping vault, right? This has been a staple strategy of DeFi for a long time, but here, it's a different flavor, and it's actually taking all of the Fusion bounds. So on every site, on every Fusion vault, and actually this view will even get a very big upgrade. We're going through a sprint for the front end that we call the transparency sprint. And you'll see even more transparency. But the question is like, okay, so where are the assets? What are they earning? So even, for example, in Stream, we say, there was a question about, okay, what are the deposits and what's the leverage? And we call that TVL and TVM, total value locked, total value managed. And value managed it's an important metric because one, the vault, the strategy provider earns on performance from the leverage, but the leverage is also where you're getting extra yield and where your risk comes from. So you want to know these things. So for example, this has 2,300 ETH levered up to 23,000 ETH. So you can see, the strategy description. This is actually done by the IPOR DAO because this vault is actually plugged into the AMM for the STETH interest rate swaps or the stake rate swaps. And then it has its underlying yield. So if we look right now, actually we can see 100% is an Aave, but over time you get a lot of different allocations. So if we look at the performance report over time, you can see basically what's happening with the vault share price. We see that actually this STETH rate is dropping to kind of all-time lows. You have a huge queue of people wanting to stake. The more stake, the more the yield drops. And then you have the share price calculation. Share price calculation, this is done programmatically, automatically by the vault. So you never have to rely on a third party. And these jumps and dips actually come from the actual on-chain difference between STETH and ETH. So again, you get radical transparency. Here, actually, this historical allocation chart shows you a lot of what's happening on the automation side. So you can see, this vault has grown nicely over time. But here you see actually the vault is continuously flash loaning between positions. In that flash loan, you're getting zero leverage cost, and you only pay the gas fee because the position migration might have a better all-in performance to the vault by migrating between markets. So you can see here, for example, that position allocation changes over time. And if we look at this spike here, right, here you have mostly Aave, and then you have the Merkle wrap stake ETH vault. And now here you have a big shift to another Merkle wrap stake ETH wrapped ETH vault. So the position flash loan between Aave and Merkle to play this interest rate kink to get the best all-in rate between the cost of borrowing ETH and the return of the staked ETH or the wrapped staked ETH in the different markets. And you can literally see Morpho's time-based interest rate kink rising because the automation algo is actually reallocating, as that kind of basis, or as kind of that spread shrinks, and it's reallocating to the most optimized yield. So in this, you can actually see what is the allocation, how is that changing over time, and how does that end in optimized yield for the end parties. The other thing is, you can the markets as a depositor, and that it can move between here and here. But for example, you don't see other credit markets in here, so that it can't go outside of these bounds. This vault can't trade perps. So this is some of the kind of this is effectively, hedge fund like strategies on chain that are being running through automated vaults. Then if we go down here, we can actually see the balance sheet breakdown. And this is something that we just actually launched a UI upgrade. But again, where's my money? Where's my money? What's the leverage? What's it earning? Where is it losing money? Where is it earning money? So you can see here that this vault is connected with Aave v3 Core, Aave v3 Prime, Morpho, and Euler. And you can see that, it's also holding, some tokens in its balance, ERC20 tokens. It might be 4626 vault shares. But right now, the entire allocation is split between Aave v3 Core and Aave v3 Prime. If we looked at it during the Morpho time, we could see effectively, what's happening in these Morpho markets. But let me just open this up. So we can see that, for example, we have about 62 million worth of ETH that's supplied here. Of course, as a supply on wrap staked ETH, it's not earning yield, but it gets this collateral APY, right? And then we can see we have 55 million borrowed, and the borrow cost is 2.14%. So your net APY is going to be 2.3%. And then if we look on the Aave v3 Prime, we get the wrap stake ETH here, again, yielding, we have 8.4 million, 7.59 borrowed. And then you have the basis, you have the unallocated, which has a higher collateral yield than, the borrow APY. So you have that basis on the 7.59 million, and then the remainder that's just earning that collateral APY. And then on Morpho, you can see that, of course, the vault unwound because this borrow APY is sitting above the collateral APY. So this is why the vault has reallocated out there. But if you have a dumb or a static allocation, it's sitting in there actually losing money. So how do you have this intelligence be able to move between positions to optimize, to risk management, to exit from an unprofitable position? And this is where Fusion excels. So this kind of balance sheet is just built from the on-chain allocation. This vault is doing its own accounting. And then you can see exactly where your assets are, what they're earning, rather than having this one nice, static, very high number that's never being realized by a lot of the other front ends. So again, when I want to know and where I'm allocating capital, from a personal perspective, I want to know what it's earning. I want to know the good, bad, and the ugly. What assets is it exposed to? Is it stuck in an unprofitable loop? And this nothing's hidden from the front end. You can see this negative net APY of 5%, but that's sitting on $1.4 thousand or about half an ETH, right? So again, nothing hidden, but then you can see your net APY. So that is a Fusion Vault from a depositor's perspective. And then, of course, you can just click here and you can deposit or you can withdraw. Specifically, you can also see that this has a scheduled withdrawal, and there are fees on this vault because fees in this case, they have a leverage cost, and that all the fees for deposit and withdrawal, they don't go to the protocol, they don't go to the curator, they go back to the vault. So someone in the vault, someone has to pay for the leverage cost, and it's always the vault. So in a lot of the leverage looping vaults, if there's a deposit fee, that's going back to the users that are there to subsidize leverage, also on the withdrawal. So this is a radical transparency so that you have everything to be able to do your own research. We make it easy. Let me show you really quick. We have the IPOR USDC Prime right here, and you can see this allocation being managed, and you have this risk rating, which is something I was telling you about. This vault has a AA risk rating by Cerberus, which is a third-party rating system, and you can click on this link and you can go buy the report if you want to actually see what the underlying is. And they do a breakdown of basically what is the underlying strategy, what are the markets, what is the assets, what are the quality of those assets, is there leverage, and that's how this rating is formed. But let's go now from builder's perspective. So if I want to build, I can go to app.ipor.io/build-on-fusion, and you get to this page, right? And this page will be actually radically redone. So for example, we have 3 different vault fees coming out. So if you're a builder, you can click through and you can set up a vault right here. So let's say that we want to do Edward vault, right? And then we call it ED Ward, right? This is your vault underlying token. Let's say that you want your own meme coin. You can put the address in here. You can put USDC. You can choose your base asset here, and then you can choose the vault owner. It can be the vault, the wallet that's setting it up. Redemption delay, it just, if you have a 1-second delay, it avoids a lot of economic attacks at the flash loan perspective. You can connect to your wallet and you could spin it up. So that process, you can be done in under a minute, spinning up your own vault from factory. Once you do that, you can actually wire it up from the front end. So let's use that ST-ETH vault as an example. So we go here, we go to IPOR Staked Ethereum, and actually you can see behind this, you can click this edit button here, and you can see what's happening at the vault level. So this is radical transparency. You can see what the vault cap is. You can see that this vault is already been converted to public, which means that there's no whitelist. That means that any address can deposit here. Shares are transferable. And for example, there will be a Pendle pool set up later today for this specific vault. And so this are the basic vault settings. So you can say, okay, I want to cap this vault. I want it completely uncapped. For example, a lending optimizer can be completely uncapped because you can deposit as much as you want into the money markets, and the money markets will be able to eat it up. So I can't do anything on this because I don't have the role of atomist. So for example, this is viewable to the public, but you really can't do anything. Access Manager, think of this from a control perspective of who can do what. Who can do what, and if you're thinking from a fund perspective, either a DeFi asset manager native or a traditional asset manager, this is your administrative controls. This is built on Open Zeppelin. So it's a administrative rights that have been audited how many times, but it also allows you to risk manage inside of an organization. So let's say, Edward and me, Darren, we're going to set up a vault. Let's say Edward is a strategy genius. I have the the data and execution capabilities. So we're going to market. But let's say we don't really really know each other. We're trying to understand, and also like if other people are putting assets in this vault, they want to understand who can do what. So Edward, you're going to be the atomist, which is the kind of the curator role, which is a strategy role. And that's right here. And I'm going to be the alpha. And what that means is the atomist is, let's say, the second most powerful role after the owner. And the atomist can kind of do everything that's here on this left-hand side. You can set the roles to do all of this, which is setting up the strategies in the guardrails. Like, what is your on-chain investment universe, or what are the boundaries of the strategy? And then the alpha can execute any logic within those bounds. And so this is the this is the execution flexibility. The intellectual property can be held in the back end, and it doesn't have to be exposed. So you say that, Edward, you're putting the ingredient list in public, but me as the alpha, I'm in the kitchen cooking and I have the secret sauce, and the end person gets to eat the dish. They can see what the ingredient list is, but they don't necessarily know what's the secret sauce or what's the intellectual property. So this is how intellectual property can be protected inside of Fusion, but executed securely. All the other roles I won't go through, but we have a full vault setup guide. Integrations, again, we talked about, you can do a couple clicks to integrate markets on the front end, and this is actually doing it at the smart contract level. So let's say I want to integrate. You can see this vault is already integrated with Euler, it's integrated with Aave. It doesn't integrate with Fluid yet. It doesn't have any Pendle integrations. You can see Morpho. You can see Gearbox, you can see Reservoir, but all of these strategies can be one click through the interface, or you can go through the the Fuse subset if the interface is not integrated yet, and you can add them on the Fuse building site. So fuses, first of all, so if we were to add them from start, we can either go from that kind of integrations, or we can actually add the Fuse. We have a whitelist of fuses on the GitHub. You can add it from here. You just click add, and then you can save the fuses, and those are actually hooked up to the vault. So that's, again, enforced at the smart contract level. If we want to see what fuses are connected with this vault, and again, we're going to add this to the transparency page, we can see Morpho Flash Loan, Collateral, and Borrow Fuse. These are the three basic fuses that make things like lending, like taking debt, or like taking a flash loan for leverage looping possible. If we compare with Merkle proof, we would have to do the exact action on the Merkle proof. In Fusion, we have the three things that are there, and then the executional flexibility is within those specific smart contract bounds. You have the same for Aave, you have the same for Euler. So you can provably show what is integrated at this vault, where assets cannot go. They cannot go outside of these bounds. So it's not like you have to validate that, what's not connected is not connected. It's very simple.
So those three core fuses basically define the vault's operational universe, right?
Yes.
And okay, Okay. So how does that modular setup help curators iterate or upgrade strategies without redeploying the whole vault?
This is a great question. And actually, this is one of the best security features, right? So if you were to do it like, let's say a standard 4626 vault doesn't integrate nicely with other things that are not 4626. Everyone preaches 4626 composability, which is true to a certain extent within 4626 constructs. But anytime you want to do something different, you have to build a custom connector. And to connect that custom connector to the vault, you have to upgrade the vault's proxy smart contract. So let's look at it from two ways. If I'm a depositor there and I see a vault smart contract upgrade, I get a big red flag because I don't have the technical capacity to understand what's happening, and that can be a malicious upgrade. So upgradable smart contracts are extremely dangerous, and I don't want to deal with them when I can see the transparency. So we use something called diamond proxy pattern, which it effectively takes routing and storage, and it sets it outside of the vault's core contract. And that's what makes Fusion possible. So these fuses are connected using the diamond proxy pattern, but that also means that you can add and remove fuses over time and effectively shift your on-chain strategy over the lifecycle of a market without ever needing to upgrade the vault smart contract. So that's both from a security perspective, from a utility perspective, from a modularity perspective. Again, if you compare that with Merkle proof, you would have to reconstruct the entire proof set, pre-verify every possible action that you ever want to do. In Fusion, you add and remove fuses. So this what makes it Fusion transparent, modular, and secure.
So you can evolve the vault architecture safely over time without triggering a contract upgrade.
You remember the let's take the Wolf of Wall Street, where it's Matthew McConaughey and Leonardo DiCaprio, and they're talking about you get another idea, right? But if you're from the fund perspective, you want to create this evergreen vault strategy, bear or bull, it can always be yielding. So for example, we're talking about last year. Last year you could get, around this time, 12, 15, 18% just lending stablecoins because the market was taking off because, the Trump election, prime lending, the risk assets were on the rise, lending unlevered was getting this kind of crazy yields. And then, no one wants to loop treasuries, yielding sub 5% because it's impossible. You can't farm, kind of the basis on leverage. But now in a low rate environment, you can. So what happens? What if you want to have a vault that's an evergreen strategy that actually during that time, it can do basic lending optimization and the levered Athena trade. And now when all of these, all of these yields drop, you can do leverage of US treasuries and private credit, right? Before you would have to always migrate you set up a new vault, set up new connectors, migrate that strategy, write the different Merkle proofs, or have a very high trust construct, or a very technically insecure construct with the continuous upgrades. On Fusion, you could do that all inside of the same vault, safely, seamlessly, and again, you can keep all of your automation, in your own backend, but it's still protected by the on-chain rails.
This is really cutting edge stuff, Darren.
This is it wouldn't be possible without the crazy engineering that we have inside of IPOR Labs. Always sitting at kind of the cutting edge of ideas, and we break down everything that's state of the art inside of DeFi, and always kind of pushing the limits. So we didn't start trying to build a vault product. We started solving a problem that we had, and then evolving the tool set and realize that this is useful for kind of every on-chain asset manager. And so, it's not like we're very much jumping on the vault trend. We actually had a very strong need and built out the tool set using the state of the art. One other thing from the diamond proxy pattern, which is critical, is again the trust in the accounting. So if we move execution and routing and storage outside of the vault, that means that we can do automated accounting. So most of the different constructs and the vaults, the NAV calculation and the share price update is fed from off-chain. You can imagine that this is the root of the issue with Stream. The share price and the NAV looked good, but there was a big hole in the balance sheet. This is not possible with Fusion if you're doing it from all on-chain sources. Every action fuse and every market that you integrate has a corresponding balance fuse, and that balance fuse allows the vault to account for its own state in the external market. So DeFi is transparent, it's open, everything can be queried, and the smart contract can talk to one another. So I don't know why we put a person in the middle. So all these balance fuses allow the vault to understand its own state and its own assets in the external market. So this is trust minimized accounting, where you take the human out of it, and all the human has to do from that alpha role is query something called the update balance, update market balances. And then really quickly at the substrates, then you can see effectively what assets the vault can interact with. And this again goes into the transparency view that I showed you on the front end. You can see, for example, which morpho markets this can interact with through the substrates. Radical transparency, easy front-end setup, and then seamless, this is from the Python SDK. We have a Python SDK with a couple of different templates where you can get up and running without ever again talking with the IPOR Labs team. You can use all of these basically public goods or tool set or the prime brokerage tools that we built around Fusion to get on-chain managing without any centralized bottlenecks.
Wow. Darren, that was epic. Thanks a lot. I know you're super starved for time because you guys work around the clock. So we really appreciate you jumping on. Maybe we can hit you with the DeFi TVL game again.
Okay.
I remember your last prediction. It was we actually spoke, I think, in September, early September or late August last year, and DeFi was doing great guns. I think we were up to about 170 or I think we were at the top when we spoke.
I think
So
100.
yeah, we were like 170 something.
Yeah, I said 10%, said 200.
Yeah, it was a very good. It was a very conservative estimate. Unfortunately, 10/10 happened. November stream balancer.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
we're going to go by the summer solstice on this one. So 21st of June. What do you think? It's 121 billion today, by the way.
The question is like, this year is vaults and RWA year. Vaults are the way that TradFi gets on chain. RWAs, for me, in DeFi, they're just a collateral instrument seeking yield. But if those RWAs come in size, like we saw, for example, BlackRock, they tokenized the Build money market fund. They started with 100 mil, and then they micro scaled from 100 mil to 1 billion. So if you see these traditional credit instruments come on, we can actually go multiples. So let's look at how this cascades. If you bring on the RWA assets, and now we just saw yesterday, Anchorage Bank is partnering with Tether to have the USAT. That is really like stablecoin issuance in dollar-backed stablecoins is limitless. It's limited to deposits in bank accounts, and I believe that there will be, a radical monetary expansion because, we're down a path that we can't reverse in terms of monetary policy in the U.S. That will be a massive expansion of the monetary supply. If those RWAs make it on-chain as collateral, that means also a lot more stablecoin is going to be issued and making its way into DeFi for yield. If we get a risk on rise, that also means that yields in DeFi are going up, both from people using the DeFi money markets to get leverage on assets, but also that means the Athena trade is back on. So that means that leverage looping for SUSDE is again a major game. So this could cascade quickly. So it really depends on how that happens. So let's go on the crazy side. And let's say 300.
Epic. Darren, permable.
I'm a permable.
We all have to be, right?
On a long enough time frame, crypto will always win. Bitcoin, DeFi. I mean, this is
Yeah.
it's a very solid thesis.
Thanks, Darren.
Thanks for having me, Edward.
Hey, thank you. It's been a pleasure. We'll cherish this and hopefully catch up with you guys later on in the year. Pick up on some new products, new features which you're shipping.
Yep.
All right.
Cheers, Edward.
Cheers.